Have you ever found yourself bending over backward for someone, only to feel like you're just getting stepped on? No matter how much you give, how much you sacrifice, it's never enough. Sound familiar? Ever been in a situation where you bite your tongue, fake a smile, and let people walk all over you, just to avoid conflict or make them happy? How does that feel? Exhausting, right? Like you're running on empty, constantly giving, but never really receiving anything back. It's like wearing shoes that don't fit. At first, it's tolerable, but as time goes on, you feel the blisters forming. Eventually, you're walking on sore feet, wishing you had just said no when you had the chance. But before we begin, pay attention to this story that will help you better understand the wisdom behind this material. The Story of Aurelia. In the heart of a sprawling empire, there lived a young woman named Aurelia. Known for her kindness and generosity, she was admired by her friends and loved ones. Whenever someone needed help, Aurelia was the first to offer her time, energy, or resources, no matter how much it cost her. She believed that sacrificing for others was the highest virtue, but Aurelia's willingness to give came at a price. Slowly, she began to notice how much she was losing: her dreams, her peace, even her sense of self. Her friends relied on her for everything, yet none of them noticed when she needed support. Her once passionate love for art and music faded as she gave up her creative pursuits to meet others' expectations. One evening, after a long day of tending to everyone else's needs, Aurelia sat alone by a quiet river, staring at her reflection in the water. She hardly recognized the woman she saw. The vibrant, joyful Aurelia she once knew had been replaced by someone exhausted and lost. While she sat in silence, an elderly traveler approached and asked if he could rest beside her. With a gentle smile, he remarked, "You look like someone carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders." Aurelia sighed and replied, "I've spent my life giving to others, yet I feel empty. The more I sacrifice, the less of myself remains." The traveler nodded knowingly and said, "Let me tell you a story." He began, "Once, there was a bird who lived in a lush forest. Her feathers were dazzling, her voice enchanting. The other animals adored her and would ask her for a feather to line their nests or brighten their homes. The bird, wanting to please them all, gave freely. At first, she felt proud of her generosity, but over time, as more and more feathers were plucked, she found herself cold, flightless, and vulnerable. One day, the bird realized that if she continued giving away parts of herself, she wouldn't survive. So she stopped, not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom. She understood that only by keeping herself whole could she continue to sing and inspire those around her. Aurelia listened intently, the traveler's words striking a chord deep within her. Seeing her expression, he added, "You are like that bird. There are things you should never give away, not for love, not for approval, not for anything. Your time, your dreams, your self-respect, these are your feathers. Guard them, for without them you cannot soar." The traveler left, but his words stayed with Aurelia. She began to reflect on her life and realized how much she had sacrificed for people who didn't value her as she deserved. From that day, Aurelia made a promise to herself. She would still give, but never at the cost of her peace, her passions, or her dignity. Little by little, she began to say no to what drained her and yes to what nourished her soul. She picked up her paintbrush again, spent her evenings by the river, and surrounded herself with those who truly cared for her. Years later, Aurelia became a symbol of strength in her community. People admired her not just for her kindness, but for her wisdom in knowing when to give and when to hold back. Whenever someone asked her how she found her balance, Aurelia would smile and say, "The greatest act of love is to respect yourself first. Only then can you give to others without losing yourself." Before we start with the first lesson, if you find these videos useful, I encourage you to subscribe and activate notifications to stay informed about the latest updates. Let's begin. Number 1. Your self-respect. Your self-respect is not just a part of who you are, it's the foundation of your identity. It's something you must protect fiercely. Why? Because the moment you start compromising it, even slightly, you hand over control of your life to someone else. Think about it. When you let things slide to keep the peace or to please others, you give people permission to test your boundaries. They'll push, little by little, until you wake up one day wondering who you even are. I've been there. In a past relationship, things seemed fine at first, but then the small criticisms started. You're too sensitive, or maybe you're just not good enough for that job. At first, I ignored it, thinking they were harmless. But over time, those words started to seep in. I began questioning myself. Am I too sensitive? Am I really overthinking? I shrank to fit their version of me. One day, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. I had let someone else's opinion redefine me, and in doing so, I had lost my confidence, my sense of worth, my self-respect. Reclaiming it was one of the hardest, yet most transformative decisions of my life. Standing up for yourself, especially after you've been letting others take advantage, is incredibly uncomfortable. People will call you selfish, difficult, or say you've changed. And you know what? They're right. You have changed. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. Most people are fine with you as long as you don't disrupt their comfort. The moment you start setting boundaries, refusing to accept disrespect, or saying no to behaviors that don't align with your values, you become a threat to their easy life at your expense. Let me be clear. Self-respect isn't about being unkind or unwilling to compromise. It's about refusing to compromise on your values. It's about having the courage to walk away from situations, people, or even jobs that demand you betray yourself. Society often glorifies self-sacrifice, making it seem noble to bend over backward for others. But let's be honest, if helping others requires you to destroy yourself, it's not selflessness, it's self-sabotage. When I finally decided to prioritize my self-respect, everything changed. Yes, some relationships fell apart, but looking back, those were the very ones that were weighing me down. When I let go of people who didn't value me, I made space for those who did. Self-respect is a commitment to yourself, a promise to protect your peace, your confidence, and your worth. Respect yourself enough to walk away from anyone who disrespects you. Stop justifying bad behavior just because you understand where they're coming from. Compassion is important, but allowing yourself to be treated like a doormat is something entirely different. Stoic philosophy teaches us the power of self-mastery and integrity. If you lose yourself to someone else's expectations, you give them control they don't deserve. The people who truly matter will respect your boundaries, and those who don't, let them go. Here's the harsh truth. Once your self-respect crumbles, so does everything else. Your confidence, your dignity, your sense of purpose. So, the next time someone expects you to compromise your self-respect, remind yourself, no relationship, no job, no friendship is worth losing who you are. Stand firm and let the people who can't handle your strength reveal themselves. Number 2, your dreams. Your dreams aren't just optional extras, they're the heartbeat of your life, the reason you wake up with excitement and purpose. They're what give your journey meaning and make every effort worthwhile. Yet, isn't it strange how often people expect you to set them aside? You'll hear things like, "That's a great idea, but isn't it time to be realistic?" Or, "Sure, dream big now, but when are you going to grow up?" It's as if dreams are only acceptable when they're small enough to fit neatly into someone else's version of your life. But let's be real. Dreams aren't meant to fit inside tidy little boxes. They're meant to shatter them. I'll never forget the first time I shared one of my biggest dreams. The person I told looked at me like I'd just announced I was building a rocket to Mars. They said, "Wow, that's ambitious." That word, ambitious, stuck with me. It wasn't a compliment. It was their polite way of saying, "That's too big for you. Stay in your lane." For a moment, I started doubting myself. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm aiming too high. But then I realized something powerful. The people who tell you to let go of your dreams, they're not the ones who will live with the regret if you do. That regret will belong to you and only you. Dreams aren't just goals, they're pieces of your soul, fragments of the life you've envisioned for yourself. Giving them up to make someone else comfortable or to gain their approval isn't just a compromise. It's a betrayal of your own essence. And if you keep dimming your light to make others feel at ease, you risk extinguishing it altogether. You might hear people say that chasing your dreams is selfish, that it means you're ignoring responsibilities or not giving enough to others. But what if the most responsible thing you could do is to pursue them? What if, by chasing your dreams, you inspire others to do the same? What if your dream leads to something that changes lives, not just yours, but others too? Let's get real for a moment. How many people have given up on their dreams, only to find themselves years later filled with regret, reminiscing about the good old days and wondering, what if? Sure, they'll have their reasons: stability, family, practicality. And those reasons are valid, but they're not life sentences. Life isn't about abandoning your dreams for practicality. It's about weaving your dreams into the fabric of your reality. Because if you don't, you risk living a life that doesn't even feel like your own. Now, I'm not saying you should throw caution to the wind and sail off into the unknown, unless, of course, that's your dream. If it is, then by all means, set sail. But if your dream is sitting on the back burner, quietly waiting while life passes you by, ask yourself this: who told you it had to wait? If you're not going to fight for your dreams, who will? Dreams make life come alive. Pursuing them, no matter how wild or unrealistic they seem, isn't just about reaching a goal. It's about building a life that feels authentically yours. So the next time someone says, "That's unrealistic," just smile and say, "Maybe it is for you." Then go out there and prove them wrong. Keep your dreams alive, because no one else can live them for you. Number 3, your time. Time is the one resource you can never get back. Yet, how often do we treat it like spare change, handing it out without a second thought? Everyone and everything seems to want a piece of it. Friends, family, work, even that random person asking for just a small favor. But here's the hard truth. Once your time is gone, it's gone forever. So why do we act like it's unlimited? I used to be that person who said yes to everything. Need help moving? Sure, I've got a few hours. Extra work project that no one wanted to touch? Count me in. But over time, I started feeling something shift. I was tired, emotionally, physically, mentally. My days were packed, yet they felt hollow, filled with tasks that didn't mean anything to me. And here's the kicker. When I needed help, the same people I'd bent over backward for were nowhere to be found. It was as if my time was a public resource, but theirs was untouchable. Don't get me wrong, helping others is important, but there's a fine line between generosity and self-neglect. If you're constantly giving your time away, who's looking after your dreams, your goals, your well-being? The harsh reality is, if you don't protect your time, no one else will. One of the most life-changing lessons I've learned is this. Guarding your time doesn't make you selfish. It makes you wise. When someone truly values you, they'll respect your boundaries. If you say, "I'd love to help, but I need to focus on my own priorities right now," the right people will understand. The wrong ones, they'll reveal themselves because they were never really invested in you, just what you could do for them. Here's another truth that might feel uncomfortable. Not every invitation, request, or favor deserves your yes. If you're always saying yes to everyone else, what happens to the things that matter most to you? That passion project, that skill you've been dying to learn, that dream you've put on the back burner. They'll stay there, indefinitely. And let me flip the script on what some people call selfishness. Being a little selfish with your time is actually one of the best things you can do for your relationships. Why? Because when you prioritize what truly fulfills you, you're happier, more present, and more energized when you spend time with others. Think about it. How many times have you agreed to something only to sit there later, resentful and drained, silently thinking, "There goes another Saturday, lost to someone else's to-do list"? That resentment doesn't serve you or anyone else. But when you protect your time, you can show up fully, because you're not running on empty. So, take a moment and ask yourself, where is my time going? Are you spending it on things that light you up, that move you closer to your goals, that bring you joy? Or are you giving it away, hoping for someone's approval, gratitude, or just to avoid a little guilt? Here's the bottom line. You are not an all-you-can-eat buffet of free time for everyone else to feast on. You are allowed, no, you're entitled to say no. You're allowed to fiercely guard your schedule. And most importantly, you're allowed to put yourself first. Time is the most valuable currency you have. Spend it on what truly matters to you. When you look back on your life, you won't remember the endless meetings or the favors you said yes to out of guilt. You'll remember the moments you spent doing what you love, with the people who valued and respected your time as much as you did. So protect your time like the treasure it is, because once it's spent, there's no getting it back. Number 4, your mental health. Your mental health is the foundation of everything else in your life, yet it's often the first thing we sacrifice. Think about it. You wouldn't drive your car on an empty tank and expect it to go far, right? But somehow, we expect our minds to power through burnout, stress, and sleepless nights without a second thought. Here's a hard truth. Without your mental health, nothing else matters. No amount of success, approval, or money can make up for a mind that's exhausted and a heart that's heavy. I learned this the hard way. There was a time when I thought pushing through was the answer to everything. Overwhelmed with work? Stay up all night. Feeling like you're on the edge? Just keep going. I kept saying yes to more responsibilities, taking on more than I could handle, and neglecting my own well-being for the sake of others. At first, I told myself I could handle it, but soon the cracks started to show. I was burnt out, losing interest in the things that used to excite me and waking up every morning feeling like I'd already run a marathon. Then a friend pointed out that I didn't seem like myself anymore, and that was the wake-up call I needed. Here's the thing about mental health. It's not something you earn by toughing it out. You don't need to hit rock bottom before you're allowed to prioritize it. But for some reason, so many people wait until they can't hide the struggle anymore. But ignoring mental health doesn't make it disappear, it only makes things worse. Think of it like ignoring the warning light in your car. You can pretend it's not there for a while, but eventually something will break down. People might try to tell you that taking time for yourself, saying no to extra pressure, or simply unplugging for a day is selfish or unnecessary. But here's the truth. They're not living in your mind, and they're not the ones dealing with the consequences when you push yourself beyond your limits. Mental health boundaries aren't about being lazy or avoiding hard work. They're about protecting the one thing you need the most, your peace of mind. We live in a culture that glorifies the hustle, that praises always being on, as if you're weak if you need a break. But here's a reality check. There's nothing glamorous about waking up every day with anxiety, going to bed drained, and living in a cycle that leaves you too tired to enjoy what you're actually working for. There's a time to hustle, yes, but there's also a time to rest. And rest, it's not a luxury. It's essential. You wouldn't expect your phone to last all day on 1% battery, so why expect your mind to function without recharging? If someone tries to guilt trip you for prioritizing your mental health, take a step back. Remember this: you're not here to sacrifice your well-being for someone else's comfort. Set boundaries. Take the time you need to rest and recharge, and most importantly, don't feel like you owe anyone an explanation. The people who truly care about you will understand, and those who don't, they're not worth your energy. Taking care of yourself, setting boundaries, saying no when something isn't right for you, those are not acts of selfishness, they're acts of survival. In the end, your mental health isn't just about getting by, it's about thriving. Take it from someone who tried to do it all and paid the price. Your mind deserves the same care you'd give to any other part of your body. When you protect your peace, everything else in your life will feel just a little bit brighter. Number 5. Your boundaries. Boundaries aren't just invisible lines, they're declarations of self-respect and sanity. Yet, how often do we let them slip just to keep others comfortable? Sacrificing your boundaries might keep the peace for a moment, but in the long run, it chips away at your sense of self, leaving you feeling drained, used, and, eventually, resentful. Boundaries exist for a reason. They protect what matters most to you. Ignoring them is like giving away pieces of yourself, little by little, until one day, there's nothing left. Let me share something personal. I used to be the yes person. Someone asked for a favor? Sure. Extra project at work? Count me in. A friend needs a ride at midnight? No problem. I thought saying yes meant I was loyal, reliable, and caring. But over time, I started noticing something disturbing. The more I gave, the more people expected. My boundaries became so blurred, I couldn't remember where I ended and they began. Then came a breaking point. I had agreed to another favor, even though I was already completely overwhelmed. The weight of everything I had taken on was suffocating me. I had nothing left to give, but I was still giving anyway. That's when I realized, either I respect my boundaries, or I keep living life at everyone else's mercy. Boundaries might sound like restrictions to some, but in reality, they're freedom. Freedom from constant pressure. Freedom to rest. Freedom to spend your time and energy on things that truly matter. Things like the right people, the things that fill you up rather than drain you. The right people, the ones who genuinely value you, will respect your boundaries, but there will always be those who test them. People who believe they're entitled to every part of you, and the more you give, the more they'll take. Until one day, you'll have to say enough. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you're shutting people out. It means you're creating space for the right people, for what truly matters. It's about ensuring you have the energy to give your best without feeling drained or resentful. People might call you selfish or accuse you of changing, but here's the truth. They're usually the ones who benefited most from your lack of boundaries. They were happiest when you put yourself last, but that's not a standard you should live by. Boundaries look different for everyone. Maybe it's deciding you're no longer answering work emails after hours. Maybe it's saying no to a friend who only reaches out when they need something. Maybe it's choosing not to engage in conversations that drain your energy or stepping away from relationships that make you feel small. But no matter what your boundaries look like, they deserve to be respected. People will test you, they'll push, they'll guilt trip you, they'll act like your boundaries are obstacles to their convenience. But here's the hard truth. People who don't respect your boundaries don't respect you. They respect what you can do for them, the convenience you offer, the endless yes you represent. Real respect means honoring someone's limits, even when it doesn't benefit you. It's understanding that every relationship, every job, every commitment needs healthy boundaries to thrive. Over time, I've learned that the best relationships I have are with people who understand my boundaries. They don't expect me to be on all the time. They don't see every no as a personal attack. They know my time and energy are limited, and that's okay. They don't need constant access to me to feel valued, and they don't rely on me for their happiness. When you start setting boundaries, you'll notice the people who truly value you will respect them too. And the ones who don't, well, they'll fade away. Setting boundaries is hard. It takes courage, honesty, and the willingness to sometimes disappoint others. But here's the thing. You're not here to be everything for everyone. You're here to be true to yourself, to live a life that respects your needs, your dreams, and your well-being. The people who genuinely care about you will understand that. They'll support you. The ones who don't, let them go. Protect your boundaries fiercely because no one else will do it for you. You have the right to say no, to take up space, and to guard your time and energy. It's not about building walls, it's about creating space for what truly matters. In the end, when you honor your boundaries, you're not just protecting yourself, you're creating a life where you can truly thrive. Number 6, your financial independence. Financial independence isn't just about having money, it's about freedom, self-respect, and the ability to live life on your own terms. It's about knowing that you're not dependent on someone else's generosity or bound by their rules. Yet, too often, people unknowingly give up their financial independence, surrendering it in small ways that add up over time. Whether it's relying too much on a partner, depending on family, or staying in a job that underpays and undervalues you, sacrificing your financial independence can trap you in a cycle of dependency, limiting your ability to make your own choices. Let me share a personal experience. Early on, I thought it didn't matter whether I had full control over my finances, as long as I was comfortable. I convinced myself that as long as I had a supportive partner or family, I didn't need to worry too much. But over time, I began to see the small ways that lack of independence tied me down. Decisions that should have been mine to make suddenly required someone else's approval. I found myself hesitant to pursue opportunities I wanted, even when I had the means to do so, simply because I wasn't fully in control. And honestly, it was humbling to realize I didn't have complete autonomy over my life. Financial independence isn't about being selfish or refusing to rely on others. It's about freedom, the freedom to make choices that align with your goals, values, and dreams without seeking permission. When you have control over your finances, you're less likely to compromise on things that truly matter to you. You're less likely to stay in toxic situations or make sacrifices that go against your values, simply because you feel financially trapped. It's common to see people give up their financial independence in relationships, believing that pooling everything together and being financially dependent on each other is a sign of trust. But while sharing finances can be part of a healthy partnership, losing your financial autonomy is a different story. That loss can quickly lead to an imbalance of power, where one person's financial control dictates major decisions, from where you live to what you prioritize. When you rely on someone else financially, even with the best intentions, you're surrendering your freedom to them. Think about how many people stay in jobs they hate or careers that don't fulfill them because they're afraid of losing their financial stability. They dream of switching paths, starting a business, or taking a break to pursue something meaningful, but the fear of losing a paycheck keeps them locked in place. This is why financial independence is so crucial. It gives you the ability to walk away from situations that don't serve you without feeling like you're risking everything. Achieving financial independence doesn't mean you need to be wealthy. It means you have control. It's about budgeting, saving, and making intentional choices that align with your goals. It's about building a foundation so that if something goes wrong, whether in a relationship, a job, or any other area, you have the means to take care of yourself. When you have that independence, you can focus on what truly matters to you without the constant worry of financial insecurity. One of the greatest lessons I've learned is that when you have financial independence, people can't manipulate or control you as easily. You gain the power to set boundaries, say no when something doesn't feel right, and pursue the path that truly fulfills you. You don't have to tolerate toxic relationships or stay in compromising situations simply because you're financially tied to them. Of course, achieving financial independence takes time and discipline. It means learning to manage money wisely, saying no to unnecessary expenses, and investing in yourself in ways that build stability. But each step toward that goal brings you a little more freedom, a little more autonomy. It's worth every sacrifice because ultimately it allows you to be the architect of your own life. Don't let anyone convince you that giving up your financial independence is a small price to pay for love, loyalty, or comfort. The reality is, when you sacrifice your financial autonomy, you're giving up more than just money. You're sacrificing your freedom, your ability to make decisions, and your sense of self-reliance. Financial independence is about respecting yourself enough to ensure you can stand on your own, no matter what life throws your way. These are the things that define us: our self-respect, our dreams, our boundaries, and our passions. They give our lives meaning and keep us grounded in who we truly are. It's easy to lose sight of them in a world that constantly pushes us to compromise and fit into someone else's expectations. But remember, your self-respect, your dreams, your boundaries, and your passions are non-negotiable. They're your foundation, your fuel, and the very essence of what makes life worth living. So, as you go forward, protect these parts of yourself fiercely. Stand firm in who you are. Honor what matters most, and never let anyone convince you to give up what's truly important. Life is too short to live by someone else's rules. Own your values, prioritize what fuels you, and make choices that align with the person you want to become. Thank you for watching and spending this time with me. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this message with someone who might need it. And remember, you deserve to live a life true to yourself. Hold on to that. It's one of the most powerful things you can do. See you in the next one.